I guess the way I would put it is what I found from studying the music of Randy Weston is that there are only two compositions of him that are generally played, that are known among general jazz players, and they're often not played correctly. But he's got dozens and dozens of tunes that really should be classic tunes. And then I think the thing for me that makes him really important is that the music, it goes beyond tunes. It goes to the area of conception. And that's what's always inspired me in great musicians like Booker Little or Mary Lou Williams or Wayne Shorter, that it's someone with an original conception of sound that's created their own world. And I think Randy Weston is one of those people.
Have you met him personally? Does he know about the Blue Nile project?
He knows about the Blue Nile project, and I've spoken to him on the phone a few times. And the amazing thing is that he was in the middle of driving his car full of clothes to the church to send them to Darfur. And here's somebody who's been on the scene since, the late 40s, and he's just still this active, vibrant man, and was willing to talk about all the music, and I found out a lot about the music from asking him questions.
Can you tell us a bit more about his background, Randy Weston's own background?
Well, from Brooklyn, but began his career as a pianist, playing in trios and playing with a lot of the great players of the era. And then as he started writing more original compositions, he had groups with Cecil Payne, and he did a classic recording at the 5 Spot with Coleman Hawkins and Kenny Dorham that I think is just one of the great jazz albums. But he gradually, through travel and study, he became interested in Africa and the relationship of his music to Africa, and lived in Africa for a good amount of time. And so his music began to take on these other characteristics that had more to do with what we now call world music, but that still had the language of jazz, chords and melodies and bass lines. And what's interesting is that he is constantly working on how to express that idea of these things coming together. It's a fusion in not in the sense that we usually say fusion, not like jazz rock fusion, but a fusion of worldviews, you might say. Like in traditional African music, things tend to take a lot longer to develop. And so some of his pieces really are stretched out, and you have to open yourself to an expansive sense of time and appreciate the very subtle development that's going on.
So how specifically did you approach his music for this project?
What do you mean, how
The Blue
specific?
Nile. In what ways would you have approached his music, changed things to adapt them to the way that you play?
Well, I don't want to say that I changed so much because the music is so great in itself. But I felt like I wanted to incorporate some new instruments. And I feel that I do that in the sense of being inspired by his will to add new instruments in his music. So I come from a younger generation, and I feel like the generation that is making music now is very often using samplers and electronics. And I knew I wanted that to be a part of this project. And I knew about the work of Jan Bang, the Norwegian sampler player and programmer, and got in touch with him, and he agreed to do it. So it's really been interesting to see him take elements of audio recordings, but also elements of the live instruments on stage, and bring them into the mix of what we're doing. I also felt that I didn't want to, in my opinion, when you cover some music, in other words, we say cover, but when you make an arrangement of someone else's piece to play it yourself, I always feel like you have to somehow change something about it, or else you're just trying to recreate what was done before. So it's very interesting to me to take some existing music and try to make my own version. So in that sense, I didn't want to do just, piano, bass, and drums the way that he performs his music. I wanted to have a different sound. So I invited Jeff Keezer to play various electronic keyboards. He's playing Fender Rhodes and Hammond organ and a little bit of Wurlitzer. And I also, instead of having acoustic bass, I have a tuba playing these low rolls. Martin Taxt, a young Norwegian tuba player, and who I met at the Banff Festival about 4 years ago. But to me, that created kind of a new sound world, a new canvas on which we could play these tunes. And sometimes, because of the brass band side, you hear a little bit of a New Orleans thing. And because of the electronic thing, you hear different influences. And we were still able to play the rich harmonies that he wrote.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very
Likewise.
much, Dave
Thank
Douglas.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.